I shorted Netflix into earnings because Bird Box sucked and they ruined The Punisher.
There's going to be earnings on Netflix today, and Netflix is a stock that typically moves a lot after earnings announcements. It can move either or way. One of the reasons I'm interested in potentially picking up a short position here on Netflix is if you look at the chart, look at the move from all the way in December. So it's had quite a move from December. You could have bought it somewhere at 230 theoretically in December. It's right now at 350, 243. It had a little bit of a gap day here. It could potentially go back and retest. Technically, it has quite the move. If you take a look at the move from here to there, it has quite an explosive move, and it could continue to go to 420. I was looking at analyst reviews. A lot of analysts are expecting a huge move in Netflix and have been raising their expectations on Netflix stock. But Netflix is a heavily valued company, and I'm not doubting it can hit the number. In the long run, all of these stocks like Netflix, Apple, they're bound to go higher. What I'm trying to figure out is, can I short this stock into earnings because of all the move and all the expectations that's been baked in? Can it go a little bit lower before it goes higher? I'm either going to do one of two things. I'm going to put on a short position that's reasonably sized, and I'm also going to, maybe in a different account, buy a long position against that short position and sell whatever one is, in the money. Or number two is I'm going to buy just a very, very small bit of exposure to whatever way I think Netflix is going to go. I'll let you guys know what I end up doing, okay? The move here can essentially go either way. I've decided to keep the position size incredibly small, and I'm just going to go for it. And one of the main reasons I think I'm going to keep the position size very small, although it has had a huge move up in the last since December, it's also had a huge move down through December. So it lost a lot of its value. It's regained a lot of its value. It could continue to try to hit this number at 420, which was not even a year ago. Looks like it was back in June through the July range. I think if I'm gonna short it, because it can go either or way. Honestly, it's buying it or selling it. Technically, my opinion, it's a coin flip. There's a lot of potentially good news right now with Netflix. For instance, they've increased their subscription, the cost of their subscription up by, an additional $3 or so a month. That could potentially drive in a lot of revenue, and that's why these upgrades are taking place. It's already, the valuation is a little bit of a concern, but realistically speaking, like I said, shorting it or buying it at, let me just pull the trigger already before I waste too much time and miss this here. Where is it? The move on this can go either way, so I'm just going to keep the sizing really, really small here. And like I said, they could drive in a lot more revenue with their new cost model, and which is why I think I'm hesitant to keep the short size that big. Beyond that, the one other thing I wanted to point out while I had you guys on the line, a lot of times I'll trade options on Netflix when I think it's a true coin flip, meaning it's just as likely to go up or down, maybe a slight bias towards the downside. I'll oftentimes buy options contracts, but these options contracts, they expire on next week, and it cost me $1,900 for one contract if I were to buy them. For a price point that I'd be looking at these kinds of strike prices. If I even were to try to do a daily options contract like 350, it's like these expire tomorrow. On these options contracts that expire on the 18th, it's the 17th today, it has to go down a lot, and I'm paying a lot of money for this. So I oftentimes will short sell stuff using options contracts, but here I don't think I'm getting good value here, and that's why I just prefer to take a smaller position on this. You know what? Before that, what's the Wall Street Bets Forum doing? What are we doing here, guys? What's going on? Is anyone doing anything for Netflix? Alright guys, I'm just going to keep the position very small here, and sometimes you just gotta gamble. Honestly, intraday wise, this is probably not the best time to short it. There's a good chance it could even try to go a little bit higher from here, but I kind of have to get back to work. So this will cost me about 10 grand to short 30 shares, so it's a bit pricey. Okay, so the order is in. I'm ready to gamble. We'll see where we land tomorrow.
I just want all of the money. Do you know what I'll leave to the technical guys. I'll just tell you that this stock was as overbought going into these numbers as we'd seen.
Good morning. It's Friday morning. Netflix announced earnings. The revenue growth was a little bit less than expected, but there seems to be a lot of buying demand still for the stock. I'm going to try to actually offload it. I've made a teensy bit of money. Had I traded it after hours, I would have actually made quite a bit, but people seem to have been aggressively buying this, and it didn't have the normal move I was expecting Netflix to have. So I think the one thing that I'm very grateful for was not buying options on this, because I would have been out almost $1,600. Before I make too much of a discussion here, let me just try to offload this at whatever price I can really get it for. Let's see here, this should be fine. I just want to sell my stake already. So I just want to kind of close that. It could fall further, but if you take a look, it pretty much opened flat for the day. It didn't have the move I was expecting, so I got rid of it.
Why did I short this stock? I was essentially trying to bet on what direction it would be the following day. So I shorted 30 shares in Netflix thinking it could have a drop of 8, 9, 10% the next day. Keep in mind, I did not short it for a long-term investment. It was gonna be a very short-term flip here. Netflix has a tendency to go up or down tremendously after earnings. It can fluctuate 10% either way. I've traded options contracts on this very successfully before. So I originally, when I was looking to short Netflix, I was actually looking to buy an options contract or several options contracts. I was jaw-droppingly shocked. Prices of put options on Netflix, they were ridiculously priced. Put options with strike price of like 350 was trading for $16. When options contracts are as overpriced as Netflix options contracts were, they're expecting a massive move in Netflix, and Netflix always has a massive move the day after earnings announcements. To recap, realized the options were just way too expensive. If I wanted to place a bet on which way I thought Netflix would go, I would do it by actually buying or shorting the stock. I kept the position size at 30 shares because those options were pricing in a massive move either way based on earnings. I didn't want to short 100 shares knowing that it could go up 10% or 11% and I could be out 3-4 grand. Netflix more or less held its ground throughout the early market and pre-market. So I decided to get rid of the position. Realistically, it was one of those situations where I made money despite me not having traded it correctly. So I got a little lucky here. Like I said, none of my expectations when Netflix happened. I only made a couple $100. Honestly, if I waited 20 minutes longer, I would have made an additional $200, but it is what it is, and I still got out. And at the end of the day, if you make money, it's always a good day. Making money sure as hell beats losing money. So till next time.